Come on, computer.
Dude,
Hey.
kick the bass.
Oh, it's pretty good, right? Not bad. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Live Live. We're doing this on a Friday. Had other commitments on Wednesday. It's the holiday season, so it's been a little bit crazy. But this is episode 000022. Super excited to have my buddy, colleague, how do I even describe Aaron? Aaron and I met probably 20 years ago. We've worked for two companies together. I worked for him as supporting him as a consultant for a little while. So we've technically worked in three places. You worked as a consultant for LivCo for a little while. So I'll say we've worked together in four different places. And you also we should get into it, but I don't know that Dave and Russ or LivCo as we know it would exist without you. So we can talk about that a little bit.
Ooh.
Kind of crazy,
wow.
right?
That's intense.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. And Aaron is an architect, worked the Chicago circuit from Murphy Yawn to Lohan Caprilli Getch to Optima to Getch Partners before founding AG Design Works, where you're doing AEC technology consulting. Thank you for being here, Aaron.
Hey, Dave, I am thrilled. Like I mentioned earlier, the fact that this is episode 22 in no way implies the ranking of our friendship. That's totally fine. I'm glad you worked out the bugs in the 21 episodes before this one.
There have been some bugs and mostly worked out. And I know, and Todd Coolman's been on twice too, which is to get to you. And Todd, he keeps calling me. He's like, wait, I have more to talk about.
Love it.
So, yeah, we've had a couple of Optima folks on here, but I mean, did my bio somewhat cover in general your lineage?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be proud. Yeah, with a little IIT teaching thrown in there.
Absolutely.
A little volunteer gig doing a little associate professor stuff. But yeah, pretty much.
And why don't you tell us what's going on at AG Design Works?
So yeah, I mean, I started, let's see, 2008, 2009. That was a fun time in our world as the economy kind of went to a halt and everything stopped. I got laid off from from Getch Partners. You can't even remember, so long ago. And I, kind of looked around and said, "What am I good at? What do I, what can I offer?" And started meeting with people. Started my consultancy in the spring of '09 with Studio Gang and W. O'Neill, general contractor and a design firm, that were really struggling with how to use BIM, how to leverage kind of 3D design and documentation and coordination in their work. And that was kind of what I was good at. And so I kind of took that from there. And over the last, 15, 16 years, have strung together clients and projects and made a business out of it. And that's where I am today. It's kind of morphed a little bit, as anybody who's done their own thing, all sorts of peaks and valleys of growth and times when like, oh shit, is the phone ever going to ring again? Moments to, I wish the phone would stop ringing. I've got more work up to my eyeballs. So, I'm very lucky that I've got a lot of repeat clients that kind of keep coming back. I've got a lot of good relationships with firms and companies that kind of value what I do. So, I joke, I've really kind of never had to kind of sell myself in terms of my website freaking sucks. I haven't updated it in
Spoken like a true architect.
My website sucks. I don't really sell myself very well, because frankly, I'm not looking to grow into like a 15 person, 20 person, 30 person firm. I'm just happy, working on working for good people. That's also a big part of it, as I've been able to be kind of selective about my clients. Um, and so anyway, yeah, fun stuff, from, let's see, right now I've got actively coordinating a high-end restaurant renovation in Chicago, um, with the Hog Salt Group, doing a data
So
center in, sorry.
I was just gonna. So who brought you into that? Is that are owners typically bringing you in, or the general, or architect, or how does it
It
typically work, and how would you ideally like to be involved in a project?
mm, Good question. So ideally, I'm working kind of in between the design team and the construction team, right? So when I say BIM coordination, I'm coordinating the project to facilitate construction beginning, and facilitating construction without conflict. So, I'm coordinating the architecture, the structure, the MEP systems, the subcontractors join on board. And so we're coordinating in 3D space the project before construction begins, right? So,
Right.
in a typical project where, like, let's say, a healthcare or laboratory project, where the design team will take the project to a certain level of coordination on the design documentation side. There are all sorts of gaps. You're in construction, you understand the gap of communication between design and construction, and how many things impact the field when they're not figured out, and not solved during the design phase. Um, so that's what I do. So in this case, the Bavettes, the Hoxel project, brought on by the owner, um, who was used to be a GC with a company that I had worked with, a client of mine. So he's on the owner side. So in this case, they're an owner that's, really actively involved in the renovation and design of. They have an in-house design team on the design and renovation of their restaurant spaces.
Okay.
So that's one side. The other side, a data center in Denver, brought on through an electrical subcontractor. So this is a subcontractor that I worked with. This is with Mortensen, a general contractor, also kind of an old client of mine.
And they would
So
be
that,
considered probably one of the more sophisticated generals in terms of technology. Would you agree?
yeah, for sure. Even back in the '08, '09 days, they were kind of industry leader, on the bleeding edge, I would say, in a lot, investing a lot of money in technology and talent. Certainly, the rest of the industry has kind of caught up to them. But in terms of capability, utilizing BIM, scanning, 3D modeling, drone scanning, uh, scan to mesh integration, certainly integrating 3D modeling and design and coordination in all of their projects is kind of what they do. So
Well,
on
and
this, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. You keep going. I was going to
Oh,
let the background.
yeah, just kind of touchstoning on these projects to give you a sense of kind of what I do. So in this case, the subcontractor Mortensen said, "Hey, this is a existing building, really complicated. You've got to model all of your electrical conduit, duct bank, et cetera, in this data center." And the subcontractor that they have a relationship with reached out to me, brought me on. So I'm kind of working with Mortensen, but my contract is through the electrical subcontractor. So I'm modeling and coordinating all the electrical conduit and other systems, in this data center. So that's a little bit kind of unique, where I'm supporting a subcontractor and doing 3D modeling and coordination for their specific scope of work. Um, so that's kind of unique. And then this other one, this existing building in Indianapolis, so a 13-story, 120-year-old building in downtown Indianapolis, being converted into a hotel, Hilton property, and been working on that. In that case, I was hired directly by the general contractor to be the BIM coordinator for the project. So in that case, kind of I take a leadership role of the MEP and design coordination. So prior to construction beginning. So issued for construction drawings have gone out to bid. The GC is brought on board. In this case, it was Bully Anderson. Bully Andrews. Bully Andrews reaches out to me. We go through a 6 to 8 month process of working with the subcontractors, scanning the existing conditions, bringing in the design models, putting it all together, making sure it all works, solving all the problems before construction begins. And just near the end of that project, one of the most difficult jobs I think I've ever been on. So.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Is that because it's an older building?
Yeah, existing
Yeah.
conditions are just an
Remodeling.
Remodeling. That's right. Yeah, remodeling with a 120-year-old tower in Indianapolis that was vacant for maybe 10 plus years prior, and I'm convinced at this point that there was some kind of gruesome murder in that building, and we're paying the price for it. Yeah.
It's hard to model that.
Yeah, it is. It's yeah, the 3D scans that we took of some floors. I swear there's some weird ghosting.
Silhouettes.
Yeah, there's some silhouettes in the background for sure.
Well, and to back all of this up a little bit, just for those listening, and you know, Aaron has existed in this world for a long time. We have spoken the same language on a lot of this stuff since we were at Optima, and we were doing. I think I sat down at Optima and said, "Hey, anybody here using Revit?" And you were like, "Ooh, let's do this!" Right? Because we weren't. Everything was in AutoCAD, and
Yeah.
I had just come from Arc Ideas, where we had just implemented Revit, as Brad Novak, who was on the show before you. Sorry.
Oh, awesome.
Implemented Revit there.
Better. Yeah, he should be before me for sure, 100%.
Yeah, it's super fun, and he's at HOK, so he had to get like full clearance to be able to.
Oh wow.
To be on a podcast.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so we're talking about BIM, that's building information modeling, and so prior to this, everything was essentially two-dimensional back in the 1990s, other than some other software programs, but we shifted to Revit. And the building information modeling is more than just modeling. There's data sets associated with all these pieces. And then you're able to have essentially simulate the building, is how I like to think about it. So it's kind of a measure twice, cut once. So it costs a lot of money to install a piece of ductwork and then realize that it conflicts with a pipe and then take it down and redesign it. So if you're going to actually simulate that in a modeling situation, you're able to solve that ahead of time. My big question is, in the world, and I'm always curious about this because, you know, we're doing remodeling. We use Revit. We don't use the full power of Revit by any means, but at the end of the day, we're still producing packages of two-dimensional floor plans, elevations, sections, classic blueprints.
Yep.
Do you see a shift in that, at least on the construction side? Do they have projector systems? Do they have computers everywhere where they're referencing three-dimensional information while they're building, or is it still relatively?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a slow transition. I mean, you know, the construction industry is it's a very slow moving battleship, right? It's not, you know, the firms that are kind of overhyping their use of technology and robots and, you know, the little Boston Robotics stuff. And a lot of that's marketing, because at the end of the day, you know, your lowest common denominator is your baseline technology. So I think you know, what I'm seeing is, you know, firms still utilizing two-dimensional drawings for communication, right? So it's the easiest way to communicate information to the field, unfortunately. But more and more people, and I'm more surprised that, you know, all the various field superintendents and people on site using tablets, opening up the model. There's a lot of really good software that kind of not geolocates, but project locates, so you can do some AR stuff, where you're holding the tablet and you're pointing it up at a corner, and that aligns your
Yeah.
model view with what you're looking at, right? So,
Mhm.
um, a lot of that is happening, certainly with layout, with robotic station, with being able to lay out information based on points in space that are derived from a 3D model that's happening all over the place. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's coming along. I would say there was a point in, like, 8 to 10 years ago where I thought, um, in my career, I might become obsolete, where things are just going to kind of pass me by. And, I need to stay on how am I going to stay relevant and stay current with the technology? But that hasn't happened yet. And part of
Yeah.
that is just the slow pace of implementation within the GC world. They're probably, you guys, builders, are most aware of risk, um, than any other industry. A lot of other industries, right? You deal with risk every day,
Yep.
right? And risk determines kind of what you're willing to, how far you're willing to extend yourself in your company. So
Absolutely. And major major communication systematic process changes come with risk because they just
yeah,
have unknowns.
yep,
We're even talking about it in our overall project management software, which we
hmm,
know that there's a better solution out there,
yeah,
but that comes with its own transition challenges where we have to understand it has to be a more careful rollout, which just takes time. It just
yeah,
does. Or when any firm implements a different software, which we were doing at Getch, right? We
yep,
were bringing Revit in, and you have a system and a process and a way of reading and visualizing amongst the team that it didn't necessarily fit. It just takes a really long time. So you don't just say, "Hey, we're all doing this." You
yeah,
you do pilot projects, right? You do smaller
yep,
test runs. You mitigate that risk as you go.
yeah,
Um, and I love kind of the it just got me thinking because for our clients we do QR codes where they can do
mm,
the AR and hold up with their phone and they can stand in their living room and see what it's going to look like.
yep,
And then sometimes we do QR codes to get to specifications
mm,
in certain areas if it makes sense, if the juice is worth the squeeze.
yep, yeah,
Usually it's just a binder full of stuff, but until this moment, I never thought, why don't we have a QR code of the rough framing that shows that final finished space? Usually we're
yeah,
pinning up the elevations and things like that,
yeah,
but there is there is a lot of value, and we're doing a very complex wine room edition, which has a lot of curves and
hmm,
it, it's complicated.
yeah,
It's complex. And so when you walk into the space, it's hard to really visualize what this
yeah,
thing, what's the point of this piece of wood being over here. But those
right,
pictures worth 1,000 words. And so I literally just open up the model, take a screenshot of it on my phone and text it to the carpenter. And he's like, oh, now I see that curve's going to die into where the roof's going down. And he gets the
right,
context of it.
yeah, yeah. Go on.
I was just going to wrap that up with the carpentry point of view. There's also something to the carpenter has been reading drawings, two-dimensional drawings and two-dimensional structural drawings, and his brain immediately processes
Yep,
exactly how he's going to build that from a bunch of lines and notes, which
yep,
I honestly can't do. And
yeah,
so training training a labor force to read something differently or be able to navigate a three-dimensional model to get the information that's valuable to them that's going to help them get there is a whole different world. Like even
yeah,
getting our estimator to open a 3D model. It's
yeah.
just a different mind. It's a different side of your brain or something. It just takes a whole different learning sequence, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. A picture worth 1,000 words, right? So cliche, but
Right.
the reality, a 3D model is worth, 1 billion words, because
Right.
so much of what we deal with is miscommunication, right? Where things aren't communicated clearly, where things are incorrect, things are conflicting, conflicting information across all these different sources. And then when you're talking about 2D drawings, you're talking about, one drawing never tells a whole picture. So now you're looking at 4 or 5 different drawings to figure out kind of how they all relate. You're looking at a structural drawing, an electrical RCP drawing. You're looking at a ceiling plan. You're looking at an architectural interior elevation. You're looking at all these different drawings to get a picture of what that corner might look like. And it requires a lot of interpretation, right? And that's where problems occur. And you talked about your carpenter, incredibly skilled at interpreting, right?
Mhm.
At reading and interpreting and filling in the gaps of information that may or may not be shown on those drawings. And so what kind of gets me going, gets me excited, what I like about what I do is because when you're able to visualize a complete, and simulation is a big part of it. That's probably the easiest way to describe kind of what I do is we try to simulate the complete project as completely as possible so that we're all looking at the same thing. We're not looking at 5 or 6 different drawings and interpreting or interpolating elevations or sizes or where this goes and that goes or where that might go and that might go. It's there in the model, and if it works, it works, and we all can see it, right? And we don't have to. We're not arguing about how we interpret this thing. So it makes things infinitely easier to communicate through the model,
Yep.
right? When we're all talking about the same thing, we can all see it. So that's, and it makes it easier. And on that end, it makes it easier to solve the problem because it's a lot faster to get to, where we need to go. So yeah.
And depending on how, and there's level of detail. So how far do you go with the model? I'm sure technology has allowed it
Mhm.
easier to go farther. Where previously, when we're working on Pentium computers trying to do this stuff, the processing power
Yeah.
and work sets and just
Oh yeah.
even the size of hard drives and RAM just
Yeah. Yeah.
couldn't really
Yeah.
keep up with the level of data and information. And now that speed, I think, is probably made it so you can go a little bit deeper.
Well, it
Um,
made it easier. So, like, I'm working remotely and I just have a laptop will travel. So, like, probably 8 years ago, I would have had to drag a desktop computer around, put it in the back of my car. Now, a laptop, and 10 years ago, my laptop probably weighed like 45 pounds. But now, yeah.
look at Optima. Remember, I think it was probably 18 years ago. We were really excited about getting that direct fiber optic line
Oh, yeah.
between Glencoe and Arizona.
Yeah.
It was like the transatlantic,
Yeah.
wire that all of a sudden we could actually somewhat
Actually
quickly.
open a
And
model live. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because there weren't all these. I think you were early on cloud storage systems.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
trying to find, yeah, cloud sync to, yeah. Oh boy.
It's crazy. So
Yeah.
I want to dig into a little bit of the efficiencies gained and some of the work that you do in the tools. So if you think back to your days, let's say at Lohan Caprilli Gatch, so like
Hmm.
pre-Revit, you're working on 111 Whacker. You got a 60-story building that's under construction. It's
Yep.
being built. There's a discrepancy in the drawings between, who knows, structural engineering and architectural. That
Yep.
sequence is then the general contractor, and I don't know because I was never involved in things of this scale, but the way I think about it is the general contractor says, everybody stop,
Yep.
issue an RFI, request for
Yep.
information,
Yep.
to the architect, fax it over to him, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
walk it down the street.
Yep.
And then from there, the architectural team gets together, figures out what the question is, probably puts together a design change order for the time
Nope.
spent, not necessarily. Okay, yeah,
Oh,
walk us through it.
yeah. Yeah. No, we're not doing a change order. We're just answering the question. It's up to the contractor to decide. He'll decide, like, oh shit, yeah, this is a change to the contract. We're going to charge more money because this information wasn't provided before. So yeah, no, an RFI kind of starts the process where, hey, this doesn't work, or these two, you show on your RCP an 11-foot ceiling, but the structural team has this, W36 that's bottom of beam 10-foot 6. So what do we do? Do we drop the
Right.
ceiling? Are we going to change the structure? Are we going to add a soffit? So it goes to the design team, and then we reach out to our consultants. So typically, an architect is kind of the leader of the design consultant teams. So mechanical engineer, a structural engineer, acoustic, lighting, all of these other design consultants are below, are working for us, part of our team. So we'll reach out to them if there's some special information that they need to solve, that isn't necessarily architectural, that might be specific to their specialty. Go back to the contractor, and then this is when the contractor will say, oh, this is a pretty significant change. This is going to cost X dollars to resolve. Boom, change order, owner, this is going to be, $10,000 more, sign this, and we'll initiate the change. Yeah, and so that's this old school process, that takes time. No set of drawings are complete and perfect. There's always errors and omissions. There's always things that, we used to say, oh, we'll just catch it in the shop drawings, right?
Yep.
Was like, well, we'll take this as far as we can with the detail that we have, and then we'll fix it once the shop drawings come through, and that shop drawing process from the subcontractors, we'll catch it at that point. And that's just part of the disconnect between design and construction, where the design world doesn't really understand, and doesn't understand. That's a strange one. I think more doesn't acknowledge the impact of miscoordination, conflicting information, and how that might impact the construction team and the overall budget and schedule, right? Just because that's not their responsibility at the end of the day. Certainly budget, but schedule, that's on the GC to figure out.
Well, in the design build world, it's everybody's problem at our company. And
Yeah.
so the intent is that we can resolve it quickly, but there is a give and take. And we talk
Yep.
about this a lot. And I had Greg Wallach on, who works with production managers in the remodeling space as well as design teams. And he was a former carpenter, and a lot of what he talks about is like there's a level of give and take, where you were kind of talking about the carpenters have to be able to fill in the gaps. Like there's a level that they have to be able to take it, and there's a level that they have to be thinking ahead. And then the design team also has to be respectful of making sure that they're getting the information to a point that the construction team can start to problem solve either ahead of time or on the fly. And we talk about it in remodeling all the time. We'll have a project where we literally have no idea what's going on in the ceiling, but we think that there's a pipe or something going on there.
Yeah.
And we can do a level of exploratory demo, but the problem with exploratory demo is it makes you think that you're going to have the perfect solution that still might not be.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to demo everything yet. So we have to
Right.
identify these areas in our drawing sets that in a typical architecture firm, you can't say, hey, GC, figure it out. But we can. We say, hey, I don't even know what our specific node is, but we'll box out and say, this is an area of unknown concern. This is our planned intent, but design team is going to need to probably be brought in after a full demo.
Right.
Or we put it on our handoff list so that we have those points. Because in the remodeling world, I mean, I just don't even know how an architect could design, a whole house remodel, hand over a set of drawings.
And it'd be a waste of their time, right?
Right.
And part of, like you mentioned, going back to the carpenter, I mean, there's a lot of artistry there.
Oh yeah.
And there's 12, 10 to 12 different ways of solving that problem. And depending on who that carpenter is and what their experience is, they'll solve that problem, 10 to 12 different ways. And so to prescribe that in the drawings where you're going beyond a level of detail that's appropriate for where the design is, that's yeah, that's a pitfall, right?
Hmm.
Where you take things too far, and even on the MEP side, that's the same world where there is, depending on the manufacturer, things can be very different with duct systems, with piping systems, depending, and that manufacturer isn't known until well past the design phase, right? When you're into construction, when you're into procurement and the GC is starting to buy equipment, that can really affect how things are designed ultimately. So, yeah, there's a lot of interpretation. I think there's where when I see value is in, again, communicating through the model where you're presenting what these problems might be, predicting, simulating, so that this trouble, like for example, before you open up the ceiling, you're going to deal with it, and you can see in the ceiling, in the design, like we've got piping, we've got ductwork, we've got electrical, we've got this, we've got structural, we've got bracing, you know to be able to see all those components in one view, I think is critical to solving the problems effectively. So
Heck yeah. Well, we're going to run a little long because I want to keep talking to you if you're
yeah,
cool with
let's
it.
go. Let's go.
I'm curious because I just think, you and I are similar in so many ways. We're Cubs fans. We love sailing. Our kind of, career. Well, obviously it's similar because we work for some of the same companies. But you started at Murphy Young. I'm just kind of curious how. And today you're a specialist. You're a consulting specialist. Like you're so dialed in and so
Hmm.
knowledgeable and incredible at your
Thank you.
craft, and a great sailor.
There you
Um,
go.
how did starting your career at Murphy Yacht, how did that kind of shape your thinking in the space of what you're doing today?
Hmm. Great question. I mean, like anything, we all of my past experience has kind of led me to what I'm doing today, right?
Sure.
So, working at Murphy on this opportunity, working on Sony Center Berlin, this massive multi-building project in uh, Potsdamer Platz in Berlin, working under Steve Nillis, right, who is a project architect at Murphy on, and he kind of became my mentor in a lot of ways. I was what 3 years out of school. I had worked at a tiny residential land planning firm out of school in '93. I lived in Europe for a year. I worked for a firm in Germany for a summer, and then I came back, and I had no idea what real architecture was at this point. I was a technical architect in terms of I knew AutoCAD pretty well. That's kind of why Murphy hired me. My technical skills certainly wasn't my design skills at that time, but I didn't know how to put a drawing set together. I didn't know really how what needed to go on the drawings, how it needed to be shown, what needed to be communicated. I was learning all that kind of on the fly at Murphy under some incredibly talented and smart people, right?
Yeah.
So you know that's when I learned kind of what a drawing needs to look like, what information does it need to convey, graphically, um, what are the conventions, what does a good drawing look like, right? So that was my Murphy on experience, and then part of that was the technical side of it, working on a huge project with a lot of consultants overseas,
Yeah.
dealing with CompuServe dial-ups and creating FTP sites to transmit drawings to a printer in Berlin, in 1994. This is all tricky stuff. And, I'm just kind of technically proficient. I'm a little bit of a nerd and curious, and so I started to kind of figure a lot of this stuff out in terms of documentation and delivery, and then also scripting in Revit. You know, sorry, in AutoCAD. So scripting, writing code, list routines in AutoCAD, customizing menus. You know, this was stuff I was interested in. You know, we were dealing with this enormous project with enormous amounts of drawings and files, and how do we figure out how best and more efficiently to do all that?
Yeah.
Right. So then, you know, as kind of working my way through solving these little AutoCAD problems to architectural desktop and maybe a little bit more interesting documentation stuff. And then 2003, 2002, when Revit was kind of coming out, I remember the Revit guys coming to our office at Lohan Associates and giving a presentation to us. I had met them at some, I don't know, some stupid trade show or something.
Were you part
AutoCAD
of the
nerd.
Revit nerds back then? Remember the
Oh
Revit
yeah,
nerds group? Yeah.
yeah, the Revit, yeah, that started. So I met them. They came in. We were kind of one of the first Chicago Lohan Associates, one of the first Chicago firms, kind of playing with it. And then we started, yeah, the Chicago. Well, it was started by Steve. What the hell was his name? Anyway, this kind of software reseller that was selling Revit and AutoCAD, and kind of put two and two together. The few firms that were actually buying
Was it
licenses
wasn't
for
it
Revit at
Clerg or
the time.
something? It was like Chicago Loop Area
Chicago,
Revit
uh,
User Group,
yeah,
CL
Chicago,
or something.
Clerg, yeah,
Or we
Chicago.
just call it Revit nerds.
Yeah, it was Revit nerd for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I'd have Andre in there at Wheeler
Yeah,
Kearns doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it.
yeah, he
Modeling
was.
modeling light switches where you could like adjust the curve
Oh my
of the
god,
edge of the switch.
that was
Like this is a
completely
little bit much.
a little bit much. It was
Well,
a lot of
then at Optima, do you feel like kind of went backwards in terms of the
no, no. So Optima kind of blew my mind. That
yeah
kind of opened everything up. You know, because when we were there, it was incredibly exciting to be part of a process where you were the designer, the documentation team, you were the coordinator, we hired the subcontractors, we were the GC, we sold Optima sold the units, they marketed the units. Like it was all, there was no one else to blame.
hmm
And at the same time, you saw the whole process.
yeah
The curtain was pulled away, right?
yeah
And I think for me that was, and I think for you, we both just completely, the idea of being the master architect was so thrilling, because it felt really, like this is what we should be doing,
yeah
where you
yep
see the impact of your drawing in the field, you're getting feedback from people in the field, you're realizing, oh wait, by by not putting the dimension strings on the drawings that I thought, that impacted these guys and they couldn't figure it out because I
hmm
took all this information off. Or, it was just a really, for me, it gave me an understanding of what drawings are supposed to be, how they're used by everyone else, and how modeling can do so much more when it's more than just a faster way of producing 2D drawings, right?
yeah
That was when the idea of the model having value beyond documentation, and the model having value for coordination, for construction, using the model for construction, using the model for presentation, and having that all kind of be tied together, was pretty exciting. So, and that
yeah
kind of opened my mind up big time.
yeah. And when I say going backwards, I guess where I was going with that is there was a level of simplicity
Yeah,
behind all of those buildings. Where the
yeah,
Sony Center and just that we're talking about at Murphy Young, like that is a highly
yeah,
crazy complex building. incredible piece of architecture that had never been built before.
Yeah.
David Hovey and Optima was really very systematic. And if you go back to the Kuhlman episodes, like everything's a grid.
Yeah.
Literally just rearranging stuff on a grid. And there's a million different combinations. So there's so much of
Stay
that.
on module. Stay on module.
Absolutely. And there's so much that, and you look at the Camel View project, which out in Arizona, which there's no way anybody else could actually build that and make money.
Yeah.
Or even look at it and say, we can build this for X number of dollars, because there was a system, it was controlled. We're able to, and we were a little bit late on it, but we were testing stuff for the Promenade project in the panel wall systems and all the variations of them, and how there's infinite combinations, but really when you break it down and create just the variations of it and where it turns in and out, and it's a left and a right, and you really break that down into a spreadsheet, it's really not that complicated.
That was, that Optima, the Promenade project that you and I worked on.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like our research project.
Yeah.
We were like, that was our PhD of BIM. Was you and I figuring out, and no one else was doing it, and no one else wanted to do it. And we said, and you took it on. You were kind of, I blame your youth. You were you were just a little bit smarter. You knew a little bit more about Revit, parametric design, that you kind of took more leaps than I was kind of willing to do. And developing that exterior wall system the way we did, it was really exciting. And I felt, taught me so much about what the capability is. But again, getting back to it, you touched on the idea of designing within a system, a set of rules, right? Like,
it's all rule sets.
What is parametric design? Is you set the parameters, you design within those parameters. And yeah, I mean, what I enjoyed about my experience at Optima was beginning to understand how you can design something that has visual complexity, but is structured in such a simple way that it's cost effective, right? So it's really elegant, complex visual that's structured so efficiently and simply and cost effectively. And that's at the end of the day, that's what good design is, right?
It's
when you
maximize
value and minimize cost.
Yeah, I remember, because a talk I had with David at Hovey at one point, he was telling me about a stair that he did for one of his early houses, when it was pretty much just him, and he was building a new house and trying to sell it. And he had this stair design, and he brought the drawings for the stair to a stair builder, and the stair builder's like, $25,000. It's just metal and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So then he's like, I'm not paying $25,000. This isn't that complicated. He broke it into the pieces, and he took a drawing to one metal worker that said, I need you to bend this piece of metal like this.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's $750. And then took the railing piece, I need you to build me this. And it's like, that's $250. And once he broke it into simplified pieces where people could easily understand the time, material, and what it took, then he'd get to that. And that's exactly what happened with Old Orchard and Camel View, and these really sophisticated architectural movements. Once you broke it down into a catalog of 10 different variations, it's like, I need 500 of this piece, of this window piece. I need 250 of this window piece. And then this is the sequence that those are going to go in: A, B, B, D, C, B. It's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh man,
do you find yourself I mean, tell me about your design journey. I'll describe it that way. But I know both of us were profoundly impacted by our experience at Optima. You working with Brad back in the day, in terms of your technical capability. You've evolved yourself. How does that affect kind of how you approach design today in Live companies?
So we're not working in a grid system, but we're working in a
Yeah.
party system.
Yeah.
And it's very, and when we get
Mm.
stuck on design solutions, or it's so easy in residential design, especially in
Yeah.
Revit or SketchUp, where you're just moving and stretching things, to just
Yeah.
draw walls and just
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
everywhere. And you see
Right.
it in production buildings, even production housing, even still, where, well, we'll just put a 45-degree angle on a wall,
Yeah.
all these things. But it really, so much of what we do and everything we do from day one is three-dimensional.
Mhm.
But it starts with a plan. And
Yeah.
that plan has to have an organizational structure.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of part of me and my career progression and learning from everything from laying out units for
Mhm.
Optima
Yeah.
to literally working on the Olympic Stadium at Getch and the
Mhm.
organizational structure of that, or hotels. And hotels were out of my scale, but
Yeah.
still the organizational structure, the movement of people and operations throughout that, it's all the same. So at the
Mhm.
base of it, it's not necessarily moving a wall here or doing that.
Mm.
You'll see in all of our projects, there's a pretty clear kind of formal nature to mass plane frame,
Mhm.
just as we did at Optima, just as we did at Getch. Just pretty
Yeah.
much anyone from kind of a modernist school has a notion of that. Like, we don't just put a window in a wall.
Yeah.
A window is either a hole in a wall or part of a system and a framework. What is it? Is it a
Mhm.
punched opening? All those notions, and then you'll see, the flow and circulation of our projects, because we move stairs all the time. Like, we completely change the floor layout, and
Mhm.
it's always feels really good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it almost feels the way it should be. So I'm probably, proudest of those overall design tenets that have just kind of oozed out and are really part of. And I don't really design much anymore. It's the whole design. Sarah, who worked at Optima, Sarah Parks,
Awesome.
um, who and she said to tell you hello. I think
Yeah.
it's
Awesome.
part of her ethos, and it kind of goes through the whole design team now.
Yeah.
Um, and then it gets to interiors, which is very similar to what we did at Optima. It goes to Ben's desk, Ben and Melissa, remember? And then they were in
Yeah.
charge of the buyer changes.
Yeah.
And that's where you just have fun,
Yeah.
but it all still has to stay within that original party or the whole thing breaks down.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a strong system and organization to that. My own company, I try and do the best I can and try and uh, run systems of run series of systems and processes of the way things should be done, from naming convention to dating convention. But I'm certainly, anybody that's worked with me, including yourself, knows I get to probably 80%, and I'm
Yeah.
not really interested anymore, or my head hurts. And um, uh, and that's probably, like, I think I hit the Revit wall when we remember Bill Duke was like, "Hey, I have all these parking spots at Old Orchard Woods, and I need to figure out which
Oh
ones
my
are
God.
available for sale." And I did it
Oh
in
hell yeah.
Revit, and
Oh
literally
hell yeah.
broke Revit, because it wasn't. I made
Oh
every
hell
parking
yeah.
spot a room,
Yeah,
and
you made it all room. So you could track the data of each parking spot. It was the most beautifully complex,
overly
kind of
complicated.
beautiful mind kind of moment of, like, where there should have been a whiteboard or a window where you were just drawing different formulas based on turning this parking space green or pink or yellow. Yeah, I mean, that's when you see the possibility, you're like, why wouldn't we build a set of rules that control the visualization of this parking plan? I don't want to I don't want to color this up with a highlighter every time something changes. I don't want to do this in Photoshop and do this all manually. That's ridiculous.
No, that's crazy talk.
That's
There's no
crazy
other
talk.
software that would ever exist that could do something. We need to use the most sophisticated, robust building information modeling system.
That's right. Yeah, to automate it. Come on. I
Yes.
mean, we could have commoditized that and spun off a company that was selling those parking plan services around the
Hmm.
world. I mean, we'd be thousandaires right now, easily.
We would, yeah. Um, yeah, 250 megabyte
Yeah, parking
Revit
plan.
file for parking spots.
Yeah, come
Good
on.
work. But I think where I found, and this is where my brain kind of ends when it comes to computer science, because I'm a very like spatial visual person, and when it really
Hmm.
gets into the algorithms, math really was never my thing beyond geometry and trigonometry. Is
Yeah.
that the final feedback loop in Revit, because things talk to each other, but there was like a wall at some point. I can't remember exactly what it was, but when I hit that wall where if I did something, it couldn't cycle back and feed that information to me, which
Mm.
is probably ways to like program around that. But no, that's not Lisp routines. That stuff wasn't my cup of tea. I can make a pretty drawing that's parametric, I guess.
Yeah.
But well, we're gonna have to do this again sometime, man. Because we could
All
just talk
right.
all day, and it's been too long. I do want to kind of end with the last story, because do you know that you're responsible for Livco, right? Are
So
you?
you're okay. Go for it. Let me hear it. I
So
don't think so, but
way back in the day when I had my early life crisis and quit working and went back to grad school full time, you
yeah,
were working with Dwayne, I believe, Dwayne Carter,
yeah,
who was working with a developer up in Libertyville. And so
yeah,
you brought me in to assist with the existing conditions of the school building. And
yeah,
then I helped with some modeling that you were doing there. And then
yeah.
that connected me with John McClendon, who was the developer who I met with, who hired me after graduate school because I did some
Yep.
side work for him. And then who was the director of construction at Streetscape Development, Mr. Russell Head.
Oh, that's right. That's
Boom.
right.
Yeah.
Oh
And,
shit.
and then Livco was born in Libertyville at a bar. Like,
Oh,
we can do this better. So here we
I
are.
love that. Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Ah, you're welcome. That's awesome. Yeah, part of my foggy midlife brain, I had forgotten those details. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
there's a lot of fun connected dots in our journeys, and
What is
it's awesome.
what is John McClendon doing these days? Have you ever heard his name? Is he
Yeah,
still out there in the in Libertyville space?
I think he did a Skokie development.
Okay.
And I think I saw him at the Builders Show a couple years ago. I think Russ got lunch with him.
Oh yeah.
He's trying to work in some of the tech world and do some stuff, but it's hard because that technology moves so quickly.
Yeah.
And then his son, who's like all grown up now, and just like I'm sure you realize, is I think your kids are now like late 20s, which is mind blowing to me.
Quinn is, yeah, 25, which
It's
is
not cool.
unbelievable. Doesn't
Um,
sound right out loud.
yeah, little Brian McClendon, he used to come hang out in the office after school, who was, I don't know, like 8 years old. Now he has a remodeling company.
Oh wow.
And with sister Katie, I think they were doing some stuff up north. So we've talked to them a little bit and tried to, help
Oh
them
cool.
figure that whole world out, because took us 13 years to, I'd say it probably took us 10 years to kind of feel like we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
Now we're on the edge of, I think we actually know what we're doing. So,
Nice.
um, but yeah,
Love it.
that's kind of what's going on. But thanks for not inviting me to any more poker nights, because I get cleaned out with all your smart,
Oh my god.
mathematical brained friends.
That was unbelievable. That our COVID poker, online poker, where your kids in the background. I mean, that was rule number one. Don't have your twin boys look over your shoulder while you're playing online poker. I mean, that's just
They're like, "Oh,
yeah.
Dad, you have an ace."
Right. It was just
I
unbelievable.
think I lost $700.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, Marcos. Oh, yeah, Marcos says hi. He gives his regards. Um, yeah.
I
He
paid
got
for
his
the
girlfriend
fun.
some really nice
Yeah,
jewelry that Christmas. So, yeah,
yeah.
thanks for that.
I still get the email invites. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
fuck you
it's
guys.
all I do is just like forward, yeah, reply all some email from 2021.
Yeah, I'm never gonna get over that one. But
That's good. Well, you shouldn't. I mean, that's a life lesson, buddy. I mean, really, you paid for a life lesson. Some people for, coaching, life coaching, they'll spend, a couple $1,000. You only spent $700.
that's right.
You
I
got
could have done
off
that in
pretty light.
Vegas and lost my house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, tell
consider
Marcos thank you.
it.
Well, Aaron, awesome catching up, man. Enjoy Florida.
Dave, it's
Where
the
are you
best.
down there? Which coast?
We are in St. Pete
Oh yeah,
for a
that's great.
week or
Beautiful.
so, and then yeah, seeing Kristen's family for a bit, and then my family for a bit, and back in Chicago in January, just in time for the warm up. Right,
Yep.
January is going to be like 50s and 60s in Chicago.
Oh
Haha.
yeah, it's gonna be delightful.
Yeah. So
All right, man. Great catching up. Thanks. This has been like
see you,
super
buddy.
cool.
Thanks for
Say,
including me.
absolutely. We'll do it again. Say hey to Kristen and the kids. Talk to you
All
soon,
right,
man.
buddy. You as
Later.
well. See ya.